Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
You can see my screen, right?
Yes, Prabhupada.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Naranam Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayat Mudiraye. Nashtaprayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya. Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Nastiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 12, text number 8 to 11. The chapter is titled The Creation of the Kumaras and Others. Savairurodha Devanam Purvajo Bhagavan Bhava Namani Kurume Dhata Sthanani Cha Jagat Guru. After his birth, he began to cry, O Destiny Maker, Teacher of the Universe, kindly designate my name and place. Iti tasya vachaha papadma Bhagavan paripalayan abhyadhat bhadraya vacha marodi tatkaromite. The all-powerful Brahma, who was born from the lotus flower, pacified the boy with gentle words, accepting his request and said, Do not cry. I shall certainly do as you desire. Yad arodi shurasreshta sodvega iva balaka tatah tvam abhidashyanti namna rudra iti praja. Thereafter Brahma said, O chief of the demigods, you shall be called by the name Rudra by all people because you have so anxiously cried. Rid indriyani asu vyoma vayu agni jalam mahi surya chandra tapha chaiva sthanani agrakitani te. Rid, the heart, indriyani, the senses, ashu, life air, vyoma, the sky, vayu, the air, agnihi, fire, jalam, water, mahi, the earth, surya, the sun, chandra, the moon, tapaha, austerity, cha, as well as eva, certainly, sthanani, all these places, agre, herein before, kritani, already made, te, for you. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Prabhupada ki jai. My dear boy, you have already selected the following places for your residence: the heart, the senses, the air of life, the sky, the air, the fire, the water, the earth, the sun, the moon, and austerity. Purport. The creation of Rudra from between the eyebrows of Brahma as a result of his anger generated from the mode of passion, partly touched by ignorance, is very significant. In Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 37th verse, the principle of Rudra is described. Krodha, anger, is a product of kama, lust, which is the result of the mode of passion. When lust and hankering are unsatisfied, the element of Krodha appears, which is the formidable enemy of the conditioned soul. This most sinful and inimical passion is represented as ahankar, or the false egocentric attitude of thinking oneself to be all in all. Such an egocentric attitude on the part of the conditioned soul, who is completely under the control of material nature, is described in Bhagavad Gita as foolish. The egocentric attitude is a manifestation of the Rudra principle in the heart, wherein Krodha, anger is generated. This anger develops in the heart and is further manifested through various senses like the eyes, hands, and legs. When a man is angry, he expresses such anger with red hot eyes and sometimes makes a display of clenching his fist or kicking his legs. This exhibition of the Rudra principle This exhibition of the Rudra principle is the proof of Rudra's presence in such places. When a man is angry, he breathes very rapidly, and thus Rudra is represented in the air of life or in the activities of breathing. When the sky is overcast with dense clouds and roars in anger, and when the wind blows very fiercely, the Rudra principle is manifested. And so also when the sea water is infuriated by the wind, it appears in a gloomy feature of Rudra, which is very fearful to the common man. When fire is ablaze, we can also experience the presence of Rudra. And when there is an inundation over the earth, we can understand that this is also the representation of Rudra. There are many earthly creatures who constantly represent the Rudra element. The snake, tiger, and lion are always representations of Rudra. Sometimes, because of the extreme heat of the sun, there are cases of heat stroke, and due to the extreme coldness created by the moon, there are cases of collapse. There are many sages empowered with the influence of austerity, and there are many yogis, philosophers, and renouncers who sometimes exhibit their acquired power under the influence of the Rudra principle of anger and passion. The great yogi Durvasa, under the influence of this Rudra principle, picked a quarrel with Maharaj Amrish, and a Brahmana boy exhibited the Rudra principle by cursing the great King Parikshit. When the Rudra principle is exhibited by persons who are not engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the angry person falls down from the peak of his improved position. This is confirmed as follows. Ye anye arvindaksha vimukta manina tvai asta bhavad avisuddha buddhaya aharuya krichrena parampadam tataha patanti ado anadrita yusmad angrahayaha. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th chapter, 10th canto, 2nd chapter, 32nd verse. The most lamentable fall down of the impersonalist is due to his false and unreasonable claim of being one with the Supreme. Om Agnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmitan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Swapitamyena Bhutale Swamrupa Kalamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sujita Padakamanam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathavitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabhadutam Pariyana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Sapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhana Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Mancha Kalpatarubhasya Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Reading the 11th verse again. Rit Indriyani Asu Vyoma Vayu Agni Jalamahi Surya Chandra Tapachaiva Tanani Agre Titani Te. My dear boy, I have already selected the following places for your residence: the heart, the senses, the air of life, the sky, the earth, the sky, the air, the fire, the water, the earth, the sun, the moon, and austerity. In previous verse, we heard that how Rudra appeared, how this little boy appeared due to the anger of uh, due to the anger of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma has been given the responsibility of being a progenitor in this material universe. Right? He appears from this lotus flower, which appears from the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And the stem of that lotus flower goes through this 14 planetary system, of the top of which is Brahmaloka. And Lord Brahma is given this task for the secondary creation. The primary creation happens when Mahavishnu glances onto the material elements. That he glances on the material lying in this causal ocean of Hattva. He glances on the material elements, and his loving glance goes as Shambhu, Shiva, who comes in contact with the material energy, which is Durga, expansion, internal energy, and the expansion of, you can say, Srimati Radharani. And that glance, now, when we talk about the Shiva Tattva, we understand that, okay, Shriram Yatadadi Vikara Vishesha Yogat, right? What is the difference between Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva? Just like the difference between the milk and yogurt. When milk comes in contact with fatty acids, it turns into yogurt. So when the loving glance of the Supreme Lord, when it comes in contact with material nature, that glance is Lord Shiva. And then we see Mahavishnu, expands as Garbhodakshai Vishnu in all this material universe which comes out of when he exhales, all this material universes comes out. And then in each and every material universe, he expands as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and we see Brahmaloka. And then Brahma is given the the task of creation. So he's a progenitor, and then he has these 4 sons, the 4 Kumaras. And he's thinking, okay, now they will progeny to expand the population. And instead, after all the work, they say, okay, no, we want to remain as celibate, brahmachari. Right? We want to remain as brahmachari. And Lord Brahma becomes angry. And from his anger, in between his eyebrows, from his forehead, this little child appears, right? This little child appears. And that little child is Rudra, is bluish in complexion, bluish and reddish in complexion. Why bluish and reddish in complexion? Because it's partial expansion of Lord Vishnu, and at the same time, he comes in contact with material nature, so he's also living entity, but not a living entity, because he comes in contact. It's the expansion of the Lord. Hari Hara. We have these two um, bluish and reddish complexion. If you want to see that complexion, you can go to Siddha Mayapur, where this Harihara temple is there. Combined form of this manifestation of Sadasiva. And that expansion we see when he appears as Rudra, right, which is in fact considered as more as a partial expansion of Lord Shiva. Rudra is considered as a partial expansion of Lord Shiva. There are 11 forms, it's mentioned, 11 expansions of Rudra or Lord Shiva. And they have different names. Ajay Kapat, Ahi Bradna, Virupaksha, Raivata, Hara, Bahurupa, Deva Shrestha, Trambaka, Savitra, Jayanta, Pinaki, and Parajita. And besides this 11 expansions, there are 8 forms of Rudra, which is explained in this particular verse and highlighted in this particular verse. That 8 forms is earth, water, fire, air, sky, the sun, the moon, and the Somayaji. And Srila Prabhupada very nicely explains in the purport about this Rudra principle. First of all, going back to the previous verse, when the child appears, he's crying, but he's crying in anxiously crying, and he's asking, "Oh, what is where am I? What is my duty? What is my where am I going to reside? And what is my name?" And Lord Brahma pacifies him, right? He pacifies him and gives him the name as Rudra, that your name will be Rudra. And why the name is Rudra? Because you are anxiously trying to find out what is my name? What am I going to do? Anxiously finding out and crying. And because you are anxiously crying, your name will be Rudra. And then since he appeared from the anger of Lord Brahma, right, and the anger is considered as a product more in the mode of passion tinged with mode of ignorance, right? Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajaguna, Samudbhava. Rajaguna, Samudbhava. Rajagun, from mode of passion. And in the second chapter, we hear how Krodha appears, right? Sangat Sanjat Kaman what is that words? Yeah.
Dayado Vishayan Pumsa.
Dhyata Visham Pumsam Sangat Te Supajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kaman Kaman Krodha Abhijayate. Krodha Bhavati Sammoha Sammoha Smriti Vibrama Smriti Vibrama Buddhi Nasat Anashati. Right. Contemplating on the sense objects, one develops attachment. Through that, The hankering, and through that the lust develops. Lust is unfulfilled, and through that anger develops. Through anger, krodhat bhavati sammoha, delusion. No, anger, well, no, through anger, delusion comes. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, smriti vibhrama. Delusion, no, his memory is lost. Smriti vibhrama. Smriti vibhrama, buddhi nasat, his intelligence is fallen. Buddhi nasat pranashati, and he falls down. And that's the ahankar, the egocentric attitude, which is lying in our heart, which is the most moments, apart from the soul, which is more subtle, mind, intelligence, and false ego. The false ego is the most subtle. That egocentric attitude, because of that egocentric attitude, we come into this material world. We want to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord. We come to this material world. And that is expansion of Rudra. That's the form of Rudra. Right. Then we see that the moment that egocentric attitude is in the heart, when the man is angry, it also pervades to his other senses. And Srila Prabhupada nicely mentions that that red hot eyes, lips starts trembling, clenching of fist or legs, right? All are symptoms of anger, and that all represents the form of Rudra, right? And that principle of Rudra, then we see the exhibition of the Rudra principle is a proof of Rudra's presence in such places. When a man is angry, he breathes very rapidly. And thus, the breathing air, also we see that Rudra is present there, represented in the air of life or in the activities of breathing. And then this various expansion of the sky, we can have thunderstorm, the sky could be roaring, or the sky can burst, like what it happened one time recently in Kedarnath. The sky bursted. When a man is angry, when the sky is overcast with dense clouds and roars in anger, or when the wind blows very fiercely, like recently in Kentucky and other Midwestern states, wind blows very angrily, like the Trinavarta demon when he came to snatch Lord Krishna. It started blowing very angrily. That's the principle of Rudra in the wind. Or the sea water is infuriated by the wind, and it also appears and roars in thunder. The waves roaring in thunder, right? Very roaring very angrily, that can even at times erupt like the tsunami, right? That's also a feature of the Rudra principle. Like the earth erupting in earthquake time is a principle of Rudra principle. And the fire is ablaze. Like the blazing fire of material existence, of blazing fire is also the presence. You can experience the presence of Rudra, right? Inundation over the earth, we can understand that there's also a Rudra. So these are various expansion forms of Rudra, where Srila Prabhupada nicely explains that, how this principle of anger in each one of these elements represents the principle of Rudra. And thus we can see, Rudra this form which appears from the anger of Lord Brahma is in this different forms, right? And various Rudra, various elements, various living entities represent the speech of Rudra, like the hissing of the snake, the cobra, the tiger, the lion. They all representations of Rudra. The heat of the sun. So then there's the sun, moon, and Somyaji, right, which are also the forms of Rudra. So the scorching heat of the sun, through that it can burn people, right? People claim that, okay, they went to moon, but nobody claimed that they went to the sun. And they did not even go to the moon, but anyway, they claim. So the blazing heat coming from the sun represents also the feature of Rudra in sun. The moon, the soothing effect, the moments of moon, the sages, the anger in the sages like Durvasa Muni, we see he's angry. He shows his anger to Amrish Maharaj that, oh, how can you break your fast? Today we are observing Ekadasi. So it was also now the day after Ekadasi, where the time, Pana time was going away, and Durvasa Muni had gone to take bath, and he was going to return from there, but he didn't return timely. So Amrish Maharaj did not break his fast with grains or something, but normal water. And Durvasa Muni became angry. Right. That's the Rudra principle. Or we see even Shamik Rishi's son, Shringi, becoming angry at Parikshit Maharaj. And normally what happens from anger? Especially those who are tapasvi, when they become angry, they curse. That's why Durvasa Muni is very famous for Brahmins. That everybody is afraid. If he becomes upset and he curses, and since he's a tapasvi, man full of austerities, his curse is very powerful. But that feature is there of anger, tinged in the mode of passion and ignorance. And that same anger can be used in the service of the Lord as Hanumanji uses it. Vacho Vegam Manashakrodha Vegam, right? This Vega, the urge of anger, the agitation of the mind, anger is there. And now various devotees uses it in the service of the Lord. Hanumanji to assess the strength of Lanka. He burns entire Lanka after showing his Rudra principle of anger in the service of the Lord. And to incite that same potency of chivalry in Arjuna while he's fighting the Mahabharata war, he's roaring on the flag on the top of the chariot of Arjuna to incite that anger principle so that he can fight more and more valiantly in the service of the Lord. So these are all principles of Rudra principle, right? So that's why this aspect of Rudra, right, the expansion of, partial expansion of Lord Shiva, right? Just like he's at times compared to the expansion of Sesha. Why? Because same way Sesha is the expansion of Lord Vishnu. Rudra is a Pasha expansion of Lord Shiva. Okay, we are at 7. Are there any realization, comments, or we can take it later if everybody has to go to work? We can take it later on our Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, or if you have any discussion, we can discuss if you have time. I think we should end. Let's just set an example. Okay.